Hey guys, welcome to Predictapalooza, the 21-inch series. I've just started work on a pedestal set, and I thought I would jump in at this point because I discovered a few interesting things. One has a complete set of all original tubes, so we'll see how much life they have left, but perhaps it's a low-hour set. Incredibly clean chassis, so it wouldn't surprise me if it was. And here's some other interesting things. So these couplates that you may have heard about, and I'm often talking about, these things, these little ceramic modules, they're comprised of multiple resistors and capacitors in one package. Well, this is how they typically look. Each one of these tubular things is either a resistor or a capacitor. They're connected inside, coated with something, and then there's a part number stamped on it. And there are some pinouts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, what's inside these? Well, you'd have to look at the schematic. And they have a breakdown of what is inside of them. For example, here's one inside the dashed line. And notice the parts are labeled R1, R2, R3, C1, C2, C3, so on. But there's no indication on these packages about what part is what. You'd have to kind of look at the pin numbers and trace it out. Well, checking this out, on this board, this one actually has all the individual parts and how they are connected printed on it. So I thought that was kind of neat. And to go along with that, something struck me just now, is that the board is a different color. Every 21-inch predictor I've ever worked on looked like this. Brown board. This one is light brown and looks notably different underneath because this has a green conformal coating and this has a clear conformal coating. So quite a difference. I'll have to examine it to see what indication there is of a production run. I would guess this is a later production run, but maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's an early one. Well, one way to tell is this colored stripe. So I believe yellow means it's production run 4. Well, maybe it follows the resistor color code, in which case white would be 9, which I think is the last production run. So here's a list of production runs from the original Philco service info. So this is the VOS panel. And yeah, run 2, red dot, run 3, orange, run 4, yellow. So this has yellow. They call it a dot, but it seems to be a stripe on the board, really. And that's what I'm used to seeing, but this is white, which I don't see on the list, so this stops at run 4, where they're up to run 9. I do mention on the main chassis up to run 7, but that particular board only has runs, well, the original run, and then 2, 3, and 4. Curious. I will have to post some photos and see what the internet has to say about it. Alrighty, getting close to having Michael from Minnesota's Pedestal ready for a power-up test. He's going to be driving down this way in a couple days, and I'm really hoping I can have it ready for him. I save him having to do a second trip. So I've been working on the chassis underside. All the paper caps have been replaced. All the out-of-spec resistors have been replaced. It's been a little bit interesting because this, maybe more than any other Predicta, it's been my experience, has variations in the production. So in the service info, they give you a very nice, detailed parts placement diagram of the underside. But guess what? It didn't match what I saw exactly. For example, C2, that is the across-the-line cap on mine, it was over here. And some very minor things like those 2 resistors you see, R15, R18 on mine, One was on one side of the terminal strip, one was on the other. In other words, R18 was on the flip side. And other minor things like that. Now, I know with other chassis I've worked on, the variations are even more extreme, where some of the terminal strips are a little bit different number of terminals. So, that's something to be aware of. Take reference photos. In the past, I've thought that, oh, I've got this great detailed factory service info. That's all the info I'll need. No, not always. The schematic generally matches. Oh yeah, and there's another case. This cap, not on the parts placement, also not on the schematic. I was about to say the schematic matches, but no, not in that case. It was actually added to the filament string to ground at some point along the string between several of the tubes, a damper tube in particular. Must have been some issue they found with some noise in the filament line or something like that, and they tacked it on. It's probably in the production run changes. My point being, it's annoying because I have a bunch of these to do and I want to say, hey, this is a great layout, this is the way I'll go, and I'll line a bunch of them up and do them all the same way, and then, oh, wait a minute, this looks a little bit different. This is things aren't quite laid out the same way. So, but at least this system worked out. So for the electrolytics, that's always the challenge with this type of chassis. With the 17-inch, there's lots of great places to stick the caps. A little bit more of a challenge with this one. So I ended up doing the one cardboard insulated cap here for the voltage doubler. It had a clamp on it like this, and it's just a single cap. So I thought, well, I've got plenty of clamps. I found one of the right diameter to match the cap, and I just clamped it down and tacked the two wires on. The leads are sturdy enough on the cap. It's mounted there. I think that's good enough. Rather than adding a terminal strip just for two lugs, it didn't seem necessary. Over here, I found there was one unused lug and a couple other lugs that were already going to keep points. For example, this is B+ for the whole set, and there's a filter cap that needs to go from that to ground. Well, geez, on this terminal strip, you have B+ and you have ground right next to each other. Just throw the cap in right there, done. Likewise, over here, that is the boost voltage cap. Ground, boost voltage. Just relocate it. It had been over here. Relocated over here. I think that's the cathode bypass on the audio output tube, maybe, and so on and so forth. I did end up relenting and I added one terminal strip in the middle because there just wasn't, things just weren't panning out. I have one left to go. That's what should go to this wire. That goes to the voltage doubler, one side of the filter choke, which is way over here. There should be plenty of space to mount it over in this area where the actual rectifiers are. I'll do that when I flip it over. Now, I do intend to replace these two items. That is the filament dropper for the series strung tube filament, because it doesn't add up to the full line voltage. And that is the thermistor. Now, I had powered this set up when I first got it. And I know both of these are good enough that I could do a power up and get a raster. I'm going to leave them in for now. I will replace them, but I want to find out sooner than later if there's any other issue with this chassis or with the picture tube. I'm going to double check. I think I'm done underneath the chassis. Flip it over, install this one last electrolytic, and then I need to remount the board. And then there's the challenge of how do you power it up. Two things. On this version, the tuner is mounted inside the cabinet. Now with the 17-inch, it's possible to leave the tuner off and power it up and get a raster. But because this is series strong, you have to complete the circuit, so I have to hook up the tuner, which means I need to pull the tuner out of the cabinet. The control cluster is a little bit of a challenge with these pedestal sets because it's attached to some long wires and kind of flops around, so I'll need to clear off a large area and lay things out carefully. And the biggest challenge is the picture tube. I have a big old honking 21-inch picture tube I need to pull off the top of the set, get it situated on the workbench such that I can plug it into the chassis. So, I need to make all that happen before I can even see if this thing will turn on. Back to the top side now of this very, very clean chassis. I need to wire this back in. I just mounted it, secured the grounding sticks, need to hook all these wires back up. Now I could look at the service info, I could look at my reference photos, but I'm thinking since I have several more of these lined up to restore that I haven't done any triage on yet, why don't I pop one of the other pedestals open and pull the chassis on that, which will allow me to not only check out the condition of it, but I can put it right next to this and put them side by side. I should be able to hook these wires back up in no time flat by comparing the two. Alrighty, got myself a reference chassis. I'll talk about the set this came from in a separate video. I don't want to confuse things any more than they already are. The important thing is identical circuit boards. I can reference this to get these wires hooked up correctly. Alright, I pulled the tuner out of the cabinet, hooked that up, did the same with the CRT, populated all the tubes, hooked it up to my PR57. The fusible resistor has been removed, so we should just get filament glow. Promising with the current draw. And the pilot light is lit. We are settling in. It should be about 0.6 amps, and that is just about where we are at. Okay, and we can see all the tubes are lighting up. Okay, that's a big step. Now I will install the fusible resistor. Oh, I can smell the old filament ballast resistor I still have in there, giving that nice old hot electronic smell. Let's see what happens if we install this. No signal going in. I'm just no speaker hooked up. I'm just hoping to get some sort of raster. All goes well. Okay, surge of current, drop back down. That's good. Should slowly start increasing. We got a line. We got a line. That's something. I'll take it. I'll turn it off before I burn a line into the CRT. That's cool. So we have high voltage, we have horizontal deflection. The vertical is out. So let's take a look at that. Could be as simple as a tube being, and I haven't checked these tubes either, so that's another possibility. Make sure the yoke connection is good. Let's try this again. Dim the lights too. Still just a line. Alright, so I got a few things to check. Vertical hold on vertical height controls need to be good. And of course the vertical oscillator and vertical output tube needs to be good. So let's check all that stuff. Well, it would seem the problem is the same old, just like with the 17-inch sets. It's a bad vertical linearity control, which, unlike the 17-inch sets, which use a wire-wound power resistor, this is one of the carbon type. It's ganged up with the brightness control. These controls all have hollow shafts. You have to pull the knob off and put a flat-bladed screwdriver down the center shaft, and it's the rear deck here that is a linearity control. It should be 1K, 1 watt. If I go to one extreme, I can get it to go to ground and then get to about 25 or so ohms, and then any higher and it goes open. I will attempt to clean it, but what I suspect happened is it's been burned open. Now, just so happens I bought a parts Predictapalooza chassis a while back. I was hoping to get a good picture tube out of the deal, but that didn't happen. But at least I got the chassis, so I think I have a replacement for that. But before we go there, let's try the simplest thing, which is to clean it. And I'll use good old deoxit fader lube F5. Spray a little down in there. Work the control good. Although really, when it's dead open for most of its travel, it's probably not a little bit of dirt. It's probably the carbon track is burned open. But we'll see. Extreme case, if you really had to try to salvage this, you could take out this control, undo all the wiring, pry up some tabs, get the rear deck out, maybe try to patch the brake with some conductive something, but that's a lot of work. And unfortunately, cleaning it didn't do anything useful, so I positioned the shaft in a good portion of the carbon track. Let's try powering it up. Now, if you're wondering, how did I troubleshoot it? How did I track it down? Resistance chart. One of the most useful troubleshooting guides there is when you're trying to find a problem that could be any number of things. You pop the tube out, hook up an ohm meter to ground, and start probing around the tube pins. And when I got to pin 9 of the 10DE7, which should be around 600 ohms, depends on that control. It could be anywhere between 270 ohms and 1.27K. I had infinity, so obviously something was wrong there. Okay, I popped the 10DE7 back in. Make sure nothing's shorting anything. Alright, here we go. So assuming that is the problem, we should get full vertical deflection now. Takes a while to warm up because of that thermistor. Still have the original in there. Alright, just coming to life. Had the brightness turned down. All this troubleshooting. Yeah, dim, but yes, we do have a raster. Oh, there we go, that's a brightness control. Alrighty. Progress. Let's hook up a signal. See what kind of image and sound quality we have. Okay, I hooked up a signal source. Let's see now. Seems like the tuner's doing something. Probably has dirty contacts. Replaced both tuner tubes, new old stock 5x8, and the original used a 4BC8, which is a little obscure. But a 4BQ7 or 4BZ7 is a much more common tube and a good substitute, so that's what I put in there. Let's give it another try. that made quite a difference.
Hey, Ridden, what's holding you up back there?
Check your tubes, kids. Save yourself some time. Huzzah.
You'll have to lift your load. Get a couple of men to help you. Oh, Sierra, give me a hand there.
We actually have a little bit too much gas. Just turn the contrast all the way down. Let me put the local distance switch in the local position. Yeah, that helps. Definitely a little too strong. Alright, cool. Linearity's off vertically. I knew that was going to happen. Width is off a little. Or the picture's off center, one or the other. Won't worry about that till I check the horizontal output too. Let's see. Vertical hold on these sets can be a little touchy. That seems pretty solid. I have to go near one end of the range, but once I do, it seems they're pretty good. Good test is to go off station and then go back on and see if it locks right away. Yeah.
Very strong. We're being probed in this direction.
I just went ahead and replaced the tubes with some new old stock ones and tweaked the width and height a little bit, and things are looking much better. So I was able to scrounge up a combination brightness linearity control that does test good, so I'm going to swap that out, and the thermistor and filament dropper, and then just let this set run for a few hours and see if any problems crop up, because the owner is coming to pick the set up tomorrow morning. Just finished what I hope is the final touch, which is to replace the original thermistor with these two guys in series and replace this, which is in worse shape than I realized. And I measured each of the sections on here. This is a tapped power resistor, and overall it's measuring about twice as much as it should. I'm guessing from corrosion, which means the tubes are being starved of current. So I'm curious to see what these new guys in here will run any different. Let's find out. Okay, here we go. Wow, nice. Came up, picture locked immediately, filling the screen nicely. Fantastic. So, no, I'm just going to let this sit and run for a while. Everything seems okay. Put it back in the cabinet, and then I'll do all the final adjustments to the centering and such. Here it is all back together, playing nicely, just making some final adjustments. Don't have a lot of time to shoot videos. The owner's coming to pick it up soon. But don't worry, I have 2 more pedestals to restore in the wings, so there'll be plenty more Predicta content.
That's why some things helped, but her constipation with belly pain would often return.
Thanks for watching.
Another way, or something left to learn. When her doctor connected the belly pain, discomfort, and bloating to IBS-C, it made sense to Jill. So did learning that she could treat it with a once-daily pill. And that's why she said yes to adding Linzess. Linzess is not a laxative. It